Ramadan is a time when we all do our very best to change our behaviour and increase in our good deeds. We even see a surge in Imaan. But how do we keep this up after Ramadan is over? Join us for this and more on today's Women's AM. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Women's AM. Sadly, the blessed month of Ramadan has left us, but mashallah, we have Eid to keep our spirits up. So how long would this feeling last? What can we do to keep our Iman high or well after Ramadan? Stay with us for her views when we'll be delving into this topic. And make sure to stay with us for the last segment when we have two wonderful guests joining us and talking to us about their Eid experience. So to introduce the panel, I'm Imaan, and joining me we have Sister Hannah, economics graduate and Islamic studies student, and our special guest, Sister Nasheen Mughal, a teacher and homeschooler. Assalamu alaikum, sisters.
Wa alaikum salam.
How are you both doing on this very warm day?
Good,
Alhamdulillah. Very, very good.
Eid Mubarak.
Eid Mubarak. I know, can you believe it? It feels like Ramadan has just, like, it's only been a few days. It doesn't feel like it's been a month long, does it?
Yeah, it does.
Subhanallah. And, you know, one of the things that I wanted to ask was, in terms of Eid and how you go about your day, are you the sort of person who turns up really early for the Eid prayers? Are you the first sort of person, the 7 a.m. prayers? Or are you like me, sort of the last prayer, probably 10, 11 a.m.? What do you do?
Well, we get up pretty early first, having like obviously young kids. And we tend to go to the park. And there's only one timing for that usually. So we kind of rush out the door.
So you have to make it there, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, there are no other options.
Well, there are, but we like to take the kids to the park, especially because for the past few years it's been in the summer, so yeah, we try to make the most of it.
I think that's really lovely, and then you have everyone outside on the field praying together. I think that's quite nice. What about you, Hannah? Are you one of the early risers? You make it early for the salah, or do you go for later ones?
We always say we will, and then somehow it never happens. I think it's also because obviously it's good to make the night before Eid is a very good night to make dua and pray and things like that. So it's not that everybody is like after iftar, oh yeah, we can finally sleep, we don't have to get up for sahur. Everyone sort of stays up for a little bit. And sometimes on the occasions where we have gone early, we come back and then we're kind of like, okay, well, we've got to see XYZ person, but they're not ready yet because they're going to a later salah. So then it's kind of just like everyone's sitting around in their Eid clothes, thinking about the stuff that we're going to eat and that we're going to do, and literally we're just sitting down and we end up watching the normal daytime television, and that kind of ruins the atmosphere a bit. It becomes like a bit of a normal day. So now I think we've kind of just given up on the idea of going very early and just go
you have to agree.
Yeah, exactly. Just figure out what everyone else is doing and then do it based on that.
See, our household is kind of split. So my son goes to the very early Eid prayers with his dad, and he spends that morning with his dad. And then my mum and I go to the sort of later Eid prayers because we spend the morning sort of getting him ready and stuff. And then we have, you know, we have like a little bit of time to ourselves, me and my mum, and we just, you know, spend that time sort of catching up with each other. And then we go to the later Eid prayers, and then we come back in time for when my son gets dropped off, and then we spend the rest of the day with my son, and then we go to visit my grandparents and my aunts and uncles and things, and then we spend some time with them. And then after that, we do our own thing, just the three of us, me, my mum and my son, and then we either go to the park or we do a boat ride to Greenwich or something. So we our day is like quite split up. So it's always fun, alhamdulillah, and it's always varied. That's what I like about it.
Yeah, it feels like you've done a lot as well. Then you look back and think, oh my God, it's such a long day. That's really nice.
You're not just sitting there, just not doing anything.
I get to have like a very grown-up coffee with my mum and catch up with her before my son gets back.
That sounds lovely.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. So we'll now move on to the next segment of our show, inshallah, which is News Bites. So Hannah, you've got an interesting article for us. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so this is an article from Muslim.com, introducing the green Muslims, why halal is not enough. Halal food and cosmetics are making headlines around the globe as brands are tapping into the Muslim market with their halal certified products. However, an interesting shift is happening amongst young Muslims. So this is an interesting article. I think it explains a trend that many people will have observed for a while, in that more and more millennial Muslims are placing emphasis not just on their goods being halal in the most literal sense, but also on their goods being like tayyib. So they've actually originated, the whole process that they've been created in has been ethical, has been according to Islamic guidelines, and there's no kind of shady business going on there, and it's aligned essentially with Islamic values. This, you see in terms of makeup, having halal makeup products, in terms of fashion, where brands are trying to make sure that obviously their workers are being paid decent wages and they are having decent conditions, unlike a lot of the mainstream big brand stores. And in other areas as well, in terms of finance and things like that, there is this emphasis on not just being halal according to the letter of what the Quran says or what the hukum is, what the ruling is on it, but actually embodying the spirit of Islam. For me, I think obviously it is good that, alhamdulillah, people are thinking more broadly about issues and looking at more broadly what does Islam mean. But I feel like there's always this drive to kind of Islamicize everything by industry and kind of fail to recognize perhaps that it needs larger change to actually make these industries ethical and according to Islamic principles. There needs to be some change from the top there, not just about us as consumers demanding certain things.
And what do you think, Nasheen? Have you seen this trend as well, this shift of of not just wanting things to be halal, but wanting them to be tayyib as well?
I've seen it in some areas, but I haven't seen it in sort of a larger on a larger scale. I quite like the article, actually. I quite like this. Because I think it's something that we as Muslims should be aware of anyway. We should be ethical in producing our goods and things that we buy or we sell. We should be ethical. We should think about sort of the production the process that it's been through, and yeah, to make sure the workers are are in good working conditions, and all that comes with ethics. And I think that is important as sort of being a Muslim, that we should be aware of that anyway. And also, I think it says how it's the millennium Muslims, the young Muslims who are making these changes, and I think it's really good, because the older generation they're not so aware of this, I think, and they don't tend to be so health conscious as we are in the younger generation, and I think sort of that whole sort of not being conscious of health contributes to illnesses and diseases that a lot of the older generation we do see. So I think it's important.
And I think it's quite nice because it's kind of going back to sort of the environmental issues, because obviously when you're thinking about ethically sourcing and producing things, you're looking at the environment in which these products are being sourced from as well. So, we look at, say, for example, the fashion industry, and we've talked about fast fashion before, which is basically industries, producing garments, and the trends changing very quickly and keeping up with this demand. And obviously, with such a high turnover, there's going to be a lot of waste. There's going to be a lot of, environmental impact on having to produce things at such a large scale so often. And it's nice to see that actually young Muslims are taking that step in trying to change the way we see ethics in the fashion industry, as well as the food industry and the cosmetics and everything else. So I quite like the way that this ended, this article, which is said that actually there's a lot to offer in terms of looking at bigger corporations and bigger brands, and not just looking at it as a business opportunity, but looking at it as a means to kind of make their businesses more ethical as well, because Islam has a lot to offer in this respect as well.
But can I also add that, I mean, a lot of non-Muslim companies are already doing this, and it's something that's very huge in the non-Muslim sort of sphere as well. So I think for us Muslims to come forward and to make products that are sort of environmentally friendly and ethical, it's kind of bridging the gap between Muslims and non-Muslims as well, and to make them see, look, we're trying to do the same thing. We are sort of environmentally friendly too, and it's something that can hopefully bridge the gap and sort of erase that whole us and them mentality as well at the same time. So I think it's a good way to sort of bring communities together.
Absolutely, and I think there's this misconception that if you go for things that are environmentally friendly, that it's ethical, that it might be more expensive for you as a business, where actually it creates more opportunities. And I think it's just a matter of thinking outside the box. What do you think, Hannah, in this sort of this whole argument?
I think it can be more expensive, not necessarily, but it can be. I mean, obviously the reason that we see people doing the opposite and not being ethical is because it is a cheaper alternative, and we live under capitalism. That's the main objective, the profit motive, that you're doing whatever is cheapest. But I think that then this is what it needs us, and this is the good thing, I guess, about about this movement is that people are coming out of their own more individualistic spheres, I guess, and thinking about, okay, it's going to cost me a little bit extra, but I actually need to make sure I'm not endangering somebody else's livelihood or conditions or hurting them in some way by doing that. But I think that while social justice is obviously something that Islam has a huge amount to say on it, Islam does link it intrinsically with political justice and economic justice and other broader realities that I think we as Muslims need to kind of move up a little bit and consider as well. Because obviously you as an individual setting up a business are going to help the few people who you employ then to supply your products and make your products. But this is something endemic that's affecting so many people as a result of a system that, as you know, as I said, does not care about that.
And we won't really see the changes that are necessary unless it's done on a larger scale.
Yeah, done holistically. So I think it's a good start, but we shouldn't become complacent and think that's enough now. You know, I know that my meat is, is organic and halal, and my clothes are made from, an Islamic organisation that makes sure that they pays their wages well.
And I think it's important we as Muslims, we support these movements as well. We support these companies who are trying to do that, because in that way then they can, inshallah, they can grow as well, and they can sort of get bigger and hopefully make more of an impact.
Absolutely, and I think getting the community together and educating sort of the younger generation as well as the older generation. I think it is pretty much a community and a societal effort. I mean, it'd be nice, ideally, if governments were to put these regulations in place so that people are forced to be more ethical and be more environmentally friendly. But until we see that, then we should take that responsibility as families and communities, and then hopefully we can see the shift. And with that shift, maybe the government will then make a shift as well to make sure that this is implemented holistically. But Jazakumullah khairan for your points on that. It is now time for a quick break, but do stay with us for a discussion on how to keep our Iman high after Ramadan. We'll see you after this. Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, there will be. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Women's AM. I am joined today by the lovely sisters Hannah and Nasheen Mughal. Now, before we go on to our discussion on increasing our Iman after Ramadan, I wanted to ask you sisters, what is your favourite sweet dish that, it doesn't necessarily have to be something that you have on Eid traditionally, it can be at any point. So what's your favourite sweet dish?
Any sort of cake.
Really?
I love cakes and I love baking cakes and eating them.
What's your best recipe then? What's the best cake that you've made?
Well, a lot of people like my blueberry cake, so and we enjoy making that too. So we do like blueberry cake. It ends up becoming, it's very moist. I think the fruit kind of helps the sponge to,
See, I've never had blueberry cake. I've always seen blueberry, muffins and things like that. That's the norm. So a cake, that's quite different.
I'm going to have to bring some in for you.
Inshallah. Yeah, totally looking forward to that. What about you, Hannah?
Gosh, I was actually just thinking about this the other day, Imaan, because I see a lot of people raving about certain desserts, like, the Palestinian kanafa.
Yeah.
I don't like that. And
I like it, but I think I like very little of it. I think
sweet.
it's very sweet.
It's very sweet. And then I don't pretty much like most Asian desserts as well. Only ras malai, just about.
I love ras malai.
Yeah, but again, in small quantities, I think it's very sweet. So if you have too much, it can be bad.
So what do you like?
No. I'm very British about my desserts. I like cakes and scones and cream and jam and those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But one thing that I was actually thinking about in terms of Eid, and we were discussing earlier, is bund cakes.
Yeah.
which I had once at some family gathering, and it was amazing. And I've never really, I don't rave on about, like, I'm not a connoisseur of cakes or desserts or anything like that, but this was just amazing, and I was like, oh my god, so I definitely want to get that at some point soon, inshallah.
Cakes galore.
Yeah, and get the recipe for, you know, help us out as well so we can recreate this
I think
amazing
it's done in a
bundt
special
cake.
kind of like pan.
tin,
or
yeah.
yeah. So I don't know what makes it so different, but it was very moist, I think, as Sister Nurjan was saying.
We all love moist cake, I think. Dry cake is just an abomination. But thank you so much. We're now going to dive into our main discussion in her views. Today we are talking about how to keep our Iman high after Ramadan. Ramadan is a time when everyone is in a frame of mind of turning over a new leaf and increasing in good habits, as well as staying away from what takes us away from worship and pleasing Allah. But then we all go through a slump throughout the year. So what can we do to maintain the Iman we developed during Ramadan now that it's over? So this is something that I think a lot of people are wondering, myself included. How do I keep, you know, that Iman, that spirituality going? Because, you know, alhamdulillah, it's Eid, so you still have that Ramadan high. You know, you're surrounded by everyone celebrating Eid together, so there's still those reminders there. But there are some of us who feel like, oh, Iman, you know, is static, and that having dips and surges is a bit abnormal. But is this really true? Is it true that it's abnormal to have dips and surges?
Yeah, I mean, it's completely normal. Iman is not static, and we know from the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Oops, there we go. Popped one of our balloons.
It's the heat. Yeah, so the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said himself that, you know, it's not static, it fluctuates, and it's natural, and it was the way we were created. We're not perfect, so it does increase or decrease. So I think what's important is that if we have low Iman, we have to rise above that. And we have to kind of make our Iman strong after experiencing weak Iman. So that's what's important. So it's completely normal. Yes, it does.
Recognizing it when it's weak
exactly,
is already important.
Exactly. Yeah. So recognizing that, sort of, you know, taking steps to ensure that you can, you know, increase work on it, increase it again.
So what makes some of us feel that it is static? Because we hear a lot of things like, you know, when somebody's going through a rough time, you know, they're feeling a little bit down, or, you know, people will say, oh, it's because you have low Iman. And then people tend to think that Iman should always just be like this.
I mean, obviously having low Iman is not something anyone aspires to, and we try to avoid it, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. And I think that sometimes there's an implication that if you are having low Iman, then there's some deficiency in your faith in that sense. And technically it's because perhaps you have not been on a spiritual high, but obviously it does not mean that there is anything wrong with your actual belief, the core tenets of what you understand, and in your desire to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But sometimes just in the busyness of life, you know, perhaps there are some negative things that have happened to you recently, it's easy to feel a little bit down and a little bit depressed. But that is totally natural, and the whole point of Ramadan is that we increase our mindfulness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we are building our taqwa such that so throughout the rest of the year, we find it easier to sustain our Iman in that way. And that is why it's important to make time for nourishing the soul through various acts of ibadah, but also just contemplation and reflection. And I think sometimes people think, you know, oh, I just need to pray more in order to increase your Iman. That's not the case. You need to, I think, reflect a lot on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on the purpose of your life. And sometimes, you know, feeling that emptiness about your life after certain things happen, that isn't natural and normal, but these are the most important times where Allah is waiting for you to turn to Him, and He's waiting to remind you of your true purpose and bring you back to Him.
Well, why is it that we're actually able to sustain this high level of Iman during Ramadan? I mean, there are a lot of restrictions in place in Ramadan. You'd think that, you know, especially with this year, Ramadan being really hot, especially in the last days, the days being so long, that it would make it difficult for people to sustain, you know, their ibadah and their Iman. So why is it so easy during this time?
When we know Ramadan is approaching, it's like we're mentally preparing ourselves. And also it's that focus, you know, everybody's fasting collectively. It's something you're doing together as a community, and that whole community family spirit, it helps to motivate you, I think. But also, like, we know that there's increased reward in Ramadan. So, you know, the more deeds we do, that we know that we're aware that the deeds that we do, they're multiplied, the reward is multiplied. So I think maybe that sort of, you know, we know that awareness kind of helps to motivate us and helps us to kind of, you know, this month we have to we set targets for ourselves as well. And I think, yeah, there's increased blessing, and then obviously we know the shayateen are locked up as well. So I think that kind of helps with the drive and the motivation in wanting to sort of do more good and sort of keep up with it.
Yeah, I think it's even amazing that fasting, because often when other people and people who are not from a Muslim background, they talk about fasting, they think that it's just going to completely like debilitate you and you're not going to be able to do anything. And the result actually is that people do a lot more in Ramadan, because the wisdom in it is that you are so mindful, obviously, of the fact that you're fasting, that you're constantly remembering the fact that it's Ramadan, you know, the doors of Jannah are opened, there are all of these blessings that I can reap, and you therefore make more effort to it. But I think the other big thing about Ramadan that makes it so much easier to do this worship is atmosphere, and I can't really emphasize this enough. The connection with other Muslims, even if perhaps there's not loads of Muslims in your community, but there's just a few and perhaps you're seeing them more regularly at the masjid, or if it's online, obviously now in the world of social media, you're celebrating Ramadan with people across the world. You're getting an insight into people's lives, how they celebrate it in different parts of the world. Seeing all of that is beautiful, and it makes you feel part of something bigger than just yourself, and that you are reminded so much that we are this ummah and we are striving for the akhirah, everyone's in it together. And with everything in Islam, because Islam is actually designed to be you know, operating on a level for all of society from a state level, you would then feel that atmosphere generally in an ideal situation, that then whatever other deeds or obligations Allah has put on us, it automatically does become easier. Obviously we're not in that situation now, but this is the unnatural thing that can cause us to sometimes as well feel a little bit detached from the rest of the Muslim community and from Islam.
I think one of the things that does it for me, I think that kind of gets me through Ramadan, despite, you know, how hot it might be and how excruciatingly long the day is that you become more aware of your time. I think you're so much more careful about managing your time in a way that's actually, you're going to be benefiting from your time, because, you know, normally in life, you know, we're just rushing about doing this, doing that, you know, trying to get this done, you know, all of these priorities that we have to, and responsibilities that we have to take care of. And in Ramadan, those responsibilities and priorities don't disappear, but what happens is that we get a clear focus on the most important things. And sometimes we forget that throughout the year. So alhamdulillah, Ramadan is, you know, like I said earlier, is a time to turn over a new leaf, and I think for a lot of people that's exciting because it's it's a time of mercy, and you know, you have because as we know, Allah says, "I am as my servant expects me to be." So if we expect Allah to be merciful towards us and to forgive us our sins, then we're excited about Ramadan, because we think about, this is the perfect time for me to ask for forgiveness and to have that forgiveness. So I think it's like there's this wonderful anticipation, I think, in the build-up up to Ramadan, which is, like you said, it's that excitement. But when Ramadan is over, some of us might actually slip back into, you know, old habits that we've stayed away from during Ramadan. Is this a sign that we can't change? Because for some, you know, there's this horrible term, I really don't like it, is, you know, people will say, oh, Ramadan Muslims, you know, you're only doing good and practicing your deen, you know, in the way that you should during Ramadan, and the rest of the time you're not. So is this an indication that we can't actually change? What do you think?
No, absolutely. I think Ramadan, the point of Ramadan is that it shows us what we're capable of every single day. And the term Ramadan Muslim, I don't think it's used, you know, obviously in the right way, because we should all be Ramadan Muslims, and that we all make that extra effort in Ramadan. And obviously, though, we should have the intention to carry it on afterwards. And sometimes we don't always live up to that. I think that can be a sign, obviously, of, you know, just a decrease in atmosphere and general kind of just caught up in the busyness of life again, and those are things we can work on. But I think it can also be a sign of us outsourcing our spirituality. I saw someone use this term, and I thought it really summed up this well, in that you are reliant on whether it's other people around you or your community around you or other people putting out reminders and stuff for you to feel like you are spiritual, that you are connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that can be dangerous, because obviously we can't just be dependent on these other things in order to abide by Islam. We need to be self-motivated in that respect. So I think that after Ramadan is an opportunity to really concentrate on that aspect and see that, okay, perhaps generally the atmosphere has declined a little bit. Not everyone's obviously going to the masjid every single day. Perhaps we're not exposed to as many gatherings or talks, iftars, where we're in the company of those people. What can I change about that to encourage me? But what can I make sure I myself am doing as an individual to keep my motivation levels up?
And what do you think? Do you feel like, you know, it's maybe a bit of a cop-out to think that I couldn't possibly change if, you know, if I haven't been completely transformed by the time that Ramadan is over, and, you know, and I'm not now living this Ramadan life all the time, that then, you know, I just can't change?
Yeah. No, we can change, firstly. And I think we need to remind ourselves that faith is a part of our everyday life. It's not just for Ramadan. And if we sort of remind ourselves that this is, you know, a part of my everyday life, ibadah should be implemented every single day, I need to be consistent. And I think consistency it's hard, it's very difficult. I'm going to be honest, it is difficult to be consistent. But I think once you kind of really kind of motivate yourself and after Ramadan, obviously you've already sort of got this in you that you want to continue with it. So if you just keep that up and you just constantly remind yourself that, you know what, this is an everyday thing. It's not just for Ramadan. Ramadan was just a booster. It was a booster for me to continue, you know, with this. And just continually sort of strive to attain good deeds, you know, throughout your life.
Absolutely, and I think what Ramadan does, mashallah, is, you know, like I said, you know, it makes you focus on the things that are important. And I think if you go away with that same attitude after leaving Ramadan, even if you get caught up, it's normal in life, you know, we get caught up in our everyday things and sometimes we're just too busy. But I think if we carve out a bit of time during the week where we sit and we think about, okay, what have I done this week? How much ibadah have I put into the things that I've been doing into my time? And I think then we can start making adjustments. And then every time it's always about checking on yourself, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's
introspection.
Exactly. So I think, like you said, consistency is hard, but I think it's about reminding yourself to be consistent. That's going to help you to become more consistent. And I think for those of us like myself who might have a bit of a shoddy memory, you know, it's always good to have people around you who will remind you as well. So I think the company you keep is very, very important.
Yeah, exposing yourself around sort of people who are sort of, you know, always on check, you know. That really helps to motivate you.
Absolutely.
So being around righteous people and it definitely
And if you've
helps.
made like an awesome friend during Ramadan, make sure to stay in touch with them, because I don't know if you
Somebody
experience
will
this.
wake you up for Fajr.
Yeah, like I don't know if you've experienced this, but you know, going to Taraweeh, you meet so many lovely sisters, and you know, you share water with each other. You know, you have a little rest together, especially during, you know, the last 10 nights where you might sit together for a little bit while you're having a break from, you know, making your dua and your dhikr and stuff, and you might chat a little bit, and you form relationships and friendships with these sisters. Keep up with those relationships and friendships, because those were based on khair, those were based on good. So hopefully that will kind of recalibrate your day-to-day a little bit if you keep up with these relationships as well.
100%.
Yeah, so we're going to leave it there just for the moment. We are going to go to another break, inshallah. It is time for a 2-minute break, but don't go anywhere, because when we return, we'll be continuing on how to keep our Iman high after Ramadan. So we'll see you after this. Assalamu alaikum. Mu'mina, is there someone out there who, maybe Faiza can take one of the girls up to the loo? Is that okay? Is she? Just trying to think who we can. All right, she's asking Faiza if she can take her up to the loo. Hafsa, do you want to get your shoes on, and then someone's going to help you go up to the... Do you want to go as well? Okay.
Is it the fan that's making you want to go?
It's underneath. Yeah, I know, but I can't.
If you just slip them on and
Anam, yeah, they need to use the loo.
slip them on, don't worry about your buckles.
When you're finished with the loo, you can sit next to Anam for a bit. Then the next bit is your bit, inshallah, and we'll bring you in. Okay?
I know you're talking to them.
Yeah.
You wait for
Anam, would you mind if they sat next to you just until we? And then they're coming on in the next segment.
Yeah, no,
That's fine. Thank you.
you can put your hijab on before you come.
Oh, they don't have to
They
wear
don't
their
have to, but they
hijab.
wanted to.
Oh, that's so sweet. They both need to go to the loo.
I said to them they
Just
don't have
cuddle it.
to, but they wanted to, so.
Yeah, we're
I
ready.
don't want them to, in the middle of the station, oh no, my hijab. So, you know, because I know what they're like.
Oh, sweeties.
I said to them it's too hot, so don't worry. I have to wait a little.
So,
Almost at the end. Alhamdulillah, no mistakes.
The next question, how do we move forward now?
Knowing that we can make those changes. So we can talk about the whole, you know, sticking things in on a weekly basis. Yeah. Are we rolling? I don't know if we're rolling.
I'm sorry.
Like, say, for example, like you make a plan every month you go to one talk or an event or something. All right, coming back. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Women's AM. I am joined by the lovely sisters Hannah and Nashreen to continue the discussion on how to keep our Iman high after Ramadan. Now, we talked a little bit about, you know, the fact that Iman is not static. We will go through dips and surges, you know, and that Ramadan is really a great time to kind of boost, you know, our Iman and to kind of pick up on good behaviors that we've forgotten to do throughout the year, or to even develop new behaviors that we've not practiced before. But now that it's over, how do we actually move forward, knowing that actually, yes, we can make those changes, we have done it throughout that month. How do we then move forward?
I think it's important to be organised, because in order to be consistent, I think you need to be organised, especially if you're a busy parent like I am. You need to sort of schedule it in your day, you know, that I'm going to do this at this time, and I'm going to set a target for myself, and I want to be able to complete this at this time. And so I think it's important to give yourself targets, but also just to be determined, you know, and be as productive as you can. And I think to be productive, you really need to be organised. You know, if, like I said, especially if you're a busy parent, because you've always got, you know, tons of things to do with the children and in the house. But even if you're not a parent, you've got lots of stuff to do, house chores and all sorts. So I think it's important to, organise your time properly, and that way you can be consistent in your ibadah as well at the same time, and hopefully in that be productive as well.
Yeah, you won't forget because you know you've got it right there.
Yeah. I think it's definitely about confidence, because, you know, sometimes it's easy to kind of just fall into bashing yourself a little bit after Ramadan, like, oh, I didn't do this, I didn't do this, I didn't do that. And it's like, perhaps for some people, they felt that Ramadan did not go well. But even if you're just able to do the fasting, you know, in these long summer days, that itself is an achievement. And obviously, you know, trying to make sure that you are praying your salahs as much as you can, that's a huge achievement. Now that you go after Ramadan, where you won't have to do that fasting, you can build upon that. And even if, you know, it's other small things you've been able to integrate into your day, like dhikr, like, you know, dua, just even being a bit more mindful or reflection, I think we should definitely have confidence in the fact that, alhamdulillah, I was able to do that, and now I'm going to make sure that that continues as a habit. And scientists have actually found that for you to develop something as a habit, you need to do it for like 30 days consecutively. So, subhanAllah, if you were able to just do even one small thing in that period of time, even just reading one page of Quran a day, that is now a habit for you. You should be confident that I've developed this habit and I'm going to build on it.
And you have to, I'm sorry, you have to remember also, like, the deeds that are loved most by Allah are those that are small but consistent.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, it might not be that you'll be able to pray your sunnah, you know, especially like a lot of mums, they say to me all the time, I can just about pray my fard. But I just think, you know, same with me, you know, there's times when I can just pray my fard, but I think it's important that even if you just pray your fard, make that, you know, a quality time. Exactly, quality time, and make it a time when you really reflect upon what you're doing, don't just rush it. So even if it is just 4 rakat, you know, of dhuhr, and you miss your sunnah, just make that as perfect as you can. So yeah, I think that's important.
And even fitting in activities, I think it doesn't have to be that you have to go to a talk every day, that you have to go to the masjid every day. So for example, you say like every couple of weeks, I will go to an event or a lecture or a talk, or to the masjid that have a circle, and I will sit down and I will take, you know, I will take a notepad with me and I'll jot down everything that I find useful in that talk or whatever it may be. I think making time to do these things, you don't have to do something every single day. I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions, isn't it? That in order for you to be 100% at your best, you have to do something, you have to do it every single day, and that's just not true, is it?
No, of course, everybody's capabilities and responsibilities are different, and the fact of the matter is, as long as you're fulfilling your responsibilities, which for women is obviously primarily caring for their children, and, you know, these are the things that keeps them busy and prevents them doing other ibadah, that you're actually still getting reward for that, so that needs to be considered. But even I think as well, fasting a little bit afterwards, given that we've just passed the longest days of the year and it looks like to be the hottest days of the year so far, doing, like, you know, Monday and Thursday now seems like nothing at the moment, like on Eid, So don't let it get into an extent where a week later you're like, oh my God, no, I can't ever fast again until next year. Keep it up a little bit. There's like the 3 white days as well. There's the 6 days of Shawwal. So if you want to just pick one of those and think, okay, I'm just going to do that, and just keep yourself in that atmosphere a little bit. You know, you need to impose that atmosphere upon yourself sometimes.
And I think that's a really important point, remembering that you do have the Sunnah fast on Monday and Thursdays, and like you said, the 3 white days in the middle of the month. So it's a good way to kind of make sure that you're kept grounded after Ramadan, because with fasting, you're a lot more conscious and wary of the things that you say and the things that you do. So I think it's a really good way to make sure that you're constantly sort of renewing those intentions that you made during Ramadan.
So, yeah, I mean, also, you know that you've done all those 30 days of fasting. So I think having that in your mind, I've completed all those 30 days. Like you said, doing a Monday and Thursday shouldn't be so hard. But I think if you just keep that in your mind, I've done all these 30 days, you know, in the heat as well. I think knowing you've done that, and that can hopefully motivate you as well. Just to remind yourself, I did that, you know, I did those 30 days in the heat.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that you mentioned, Hannah, is that, you know, the environment in which we're in during Ramadan, it's a great environment because we're all, you know, fasting together, we're all praying together, going to the masjid and doing all of these things. But once Ramadan is over, you do feel a slight disjointedness in the community, and even sometimes within households where we're not praying together, you know, in the house, you know, because no one's fasting. So there's no necessity for you to pray Maghrib together because you didn't just break your fast. And for some, it might be that it's doing certain things can become quite a struggle. So for some, it might be that they struggle praying their 5 daily fard salahs consistently. That might be a struggle. Or for some, it might be that they're a lot more impatient, and everybody has a particular struggle that they have. So how do we better ourselves when the temptations are just so out there and we've lost that sort of collective community sort of ibadah feeling? What do we do?
I think just to be conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all the time, and know that He is obviously al-Basir, al-Samir, He's always there and He knows what you're doing. And I think importantly, try to attach your heart to the Quran as much as you can, and reflect upon its meaning. I think so many times we just ends up being words on our tongue. You know, we read the Arabic, and a lot of us, we don't know what it means. So I think it's really important to read what it means, read the translation, and even if you're just taking one verse every single day, just sort of write it down. I've got a habit. I've got a bullet journal. I don't know if anybody knows what bullet journals are, but I've got a habit.
Eman is a big fan.
Oh,
wow.
Great. So I do keep a bullet journal, and every day in my bullet journal I will write. I'll literally just pick out one from the verse of the Quran, from the translation, and I will write it for that day. I'll write it down, and that for me, because I know I'm so busy during the day, so every time I open my bullet journal to see all the tasks that I need to do in the day, there's the verse for me, sticking right at me. I read it again and again, and for me, I reflect on that verse. It allows me to reflect on that verse, one particular verse throughout the day, and it helps me to be conscious of Allah, and just to know everything I'm doing throughout the day, I have to do for the sake of Allah. It's for Him. And I think you have to have something to remind you of that all the time. And, you know, just seeing something, one small verse like that, it will help you to do other acts of ibadah, like, you know, make your dhikr. And like you said, you have to remember, you know, looking after your children, doing the daily chores of the house. That in itself is ibadah as well. So don't be too hard on yourself. And I think I need to emphasise that for mothers, because, you know, they do a lot, and they're always saying that to me. You know, I don't feel like I'm doing enough, but I think they need to be reminded that they are doing enough, and just do as much as you can, and Allah can see everything that you're doing. So,
I think it's with the intentions. I think you have, you know, you always try your best, I think, in everything that you do. And if it's with the intention of pleasing Allah, if it's with the intention of getting closer to Him and understanding the responsibility that you have, you know, there is a great reward in that.
Yeah, and sometimes you need to just take the time out to reconnect to the intention, to the action. Obviously, everybody knows that they're raising their children and they're doing all of these things for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when you're actually just doing sort of it all in the rush, you don't perhaps connect it like that. So sit down and think about the things that you're doing in your daily life. Even if it's working, you know, you're doing it to provide for your family. You're studying, you're enriching yourself, and you're going to use that knowledge for the sake of Islam and for other Muslims. Connect it to those intentions and remind yourself of the fact that, inshallah, if I'm doing that, this is an avenue to get reward. But going back to what you were saying about, you know, some people, they're struggling once again now to read their salah or do any of the other sort of actions that we're obligated to do. I think identifying it first of all is key. Again, like sitting down, taking even just time out regularly, every day, perhaps thinking, I know one thing I'm going to try and do is have every day, just like, imagine this day is a day of Ramadan. What would you do in that day if I've fallen behind on various stuff? Catch up on it, think about what things then I need to push myself forward for in other times. Identify then, yes, okay, I'm struggling actually now to pray my salah. Okay, so how can I actually remind myself to do that? If it's environment, can I message somebody or ask them to remind me every time that it's time for salah? Are there apps? Should I set alarms? There are a lot of ways that you can sort of be creative and think about things that you can do to remind yourself of it. Where there's a will, there's a way.
I think
that's
be
important to
honest as
remember.
well with your struggles, because a lot of the times we feel
Yeah.
quite embarrassed and ashamed of saying that I have, you know, I struggle with my salah, for example, or I struggle with the hijab. You know, I have thoughts of, you know, not wearing it. You know, so if someone is wearing it and they think about maybe taking it off, and for those who don't wear it at all, who struggle to put it on despite maybe wanting to. So I think be honest about your struggles, especially to those who are very close to you, and those that you trust, so that, you know, they're there to actually help you and remind you, like you said. So if there's someone that you know who's very good with their salah, who always prays on time, and that you trust them enough to say, look, I've really struggled with my salah. Could you just like call me up or invite me to come and pray with you and things like that? I just need someone to do this with.
I think that's so important, really, to be honest with yourself. That is really important, because you're not going to make a change. You're not going to make a change if you can't sort of, you know, if you're living in denial, then you're not going to move forward. So that's really important. So yeah.
What other practical tips would you give? Because you've got your bullet journal. Bullet journaling is probably not for everyone. Everyone's just like, it looks amazing, but I just can't keep up with it.
It doesn't have to be as elaborate as
Yeah. So what other practical tips could you give for people to kind of keep up with their sort of that Ramadan Iman?
You don't have to write a verse down. But I mean, if you can sort of just don't, I mean, a lot of sort of people, they go to talks and they hear that, oh, you have to try and read a page every day, or this is how many pages that the Sahaba used to get through, this is how much Quran they used to read per month. But you need to be realistic, you know, and you have to look at your responsibilities as a parent, and I'm a homeschooler, particularly as a homeschooler as well, because your children are with you 24/7, so you have a lot of other responsibilities. I think you need to be realistic, but you also need to set a realistic target for yourself. So it might not be that you have a bullet journal, but you know, get yourself a translation of the Quran. Read the meaning. If you can't understand the Arabic, it's so important to know what you're reading. I'm going to keep emphasizing this, because the Quran was sent down as a guidance, you know, and it should soothe our soul. So at the times that we're feeling, you know, sort of bogged down with all the housework, or you know, our child's just thrown a tantrum and we can't deal with it, you know, remember that the Quran is sent down as a guidance. Open the Quran translation, read one verse, and it will help you to sort of calm down. And also remember that your children, even though obviously you're responsible for your children, their fate is in Allah's hands at the end of the day, you know. So, you know, whatever's written for them, it's Allah's will. So you do what you can. Don't be too hard on yourself, and do take a break. You need to take a break away from your responsibilities.
That's a big one. That's a big one, taking a break.
And I mean, even if it's
needed.
just 5 minutes of your day, literally,
Absolutely.
you know. So
it's absolutely needed, because I think if you don't take that break, you don't reflect and you don't see which direction you want to go in. And a couple of tips from you, Hannah, briefly.
I think it's not even necessarily about doing stuff physically. Think about things that we are encouraged not to do, and that inshallah we've built in Ramadan. Not backbiting, not gossiping, not swearing. It's easier not to do things in your mind than it is to do things. So even if perhaps other things are a bit beyond you, just focus on making sure that, you know, you're not doing anything that Allah's forbidden.
Absolutely. Jazakumullah khairan for that, sisters. We must always remember that Allah has created us imperfect and prone to making mistakes. But this doesn't mean that we should despair of His mercy. Through the narration of the Prophet ﷺ, Allah tells us, I am as my servant expects me to be. And with this knowledge, we should continuously ask for Allah's mercy and guidance, and expect that we will get it, inshallah. Now it's time for another quick break, but when we return, we'll be joined by another 2 very special guests to talk about Eid, so don't go anywhere. We'll see you after this. Assalamu alaikum. This is the last segment, alhamdulillah. I'm trying to remember what questions I had for your daughter.
oh my God.
dressing.
فاطمة، هذه الزوادة لمحمد؟
بلى يا أبا طالب، لقد هيأتها له.
لا أدري يا فاطمة لماذا يصر محمد ابن أخي على أن يرعى أغنامنا. تالله إني لا أرغب أن يغادر فناء البيت، وأتمنى لو أنه لا يبتعد عن عيني لحظة.
تعرف يا أبا طالب أن محمدا عندي بمثابة طالب وعقيل، ولكنه أصر على رعي الغنم.
يا لنفسه الأبية، يعرف حالنا على صغره، فتأبى نفسه الكبيرة وهمته العالية إلا مساعدتنا.
يا حبيبي يا محمد، ما أرضاك وأطهرك رغم صغرك. تعرف يا أبا طالب، ليت بنيك يتشبهون بابن عمهم.
ما بهم بنية يا فاطمة؟ أرابك منهم شيء؟
لا يا أبا طالب، لا، لكن محمدا وهو في العاشرة من عمره يتصرف كالرجال ويهم بهمتهم. يا حبيبي، كبر قبل أوانه.
يا حسرتي عليه، إنه اليتيم يا فاطمة، يطوي النفس على آلام عظام، فإذا ما كان حامل النفس كبير الهمة أبي الفؤاد هجنه العذاب والطنا فكبر قبل أوانه. فاطمة، أقال لك أين يرعى غنمه؟
نعم، في جبال مكة.
هذا ليس قولي، بل أبناء أمية كلهم يجمعون على هذا الرأي.
هل ترى ما أرى يا وليد؟
ماذا ترى يا ابن أمية؟
غيمة عابرة تظلل جبل أجياد ولا تبرح.
إنه لأمر، ولكنك تعرف مناخ مكة جيدا يا ابن أمية. حر يلهب الأجساد في الصيف، وحر في الربيع، وطقس محتمل في الشتاء والخريف. لعلها غيمة هاربة.
نعود إلى حديثنا يا وليد.
من منكم سيأخذ
Be yourself.
All right. Nobody's watching.
Oh, okay. Sumaya, do you want to tell us what your favourite subject is? Geography. Do you want to do a count to 10, 1 to 10 for us in a really loud voice?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
That's
8,
fine.
9.
Hafsa, can we do a count of 10 with you too, loud?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Is that okay? Yeah, that's fine. So you're going to try and don't be too quiet. Don't be shy and talk really quietly, yeah? We need to hear your voice, yeah? So be confident. You'll do great, inshallah. Yeah. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the last segment of Women's AM. What happened? Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Women's AM. It's the last segment of the show, and as promised, we have two very special guests joining us. Now we have Sumaya and Hafsa, and mashallah, they're the daughters of Nasheen, and they'll be talking to us about Eid. Welcome to the show, Sumaya and Hafsa. How are you both feeling? Feeling okay? Excited? Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. So you're going to tell us a little bit about Eid and what you do to celebrate Eid. So tell me, what's the most favorite thing about Eid for you, Sumaya?
Going to our cousin's house praying Eid Salah.
Really? So do you visit all of your cousins?
We all gather together in the biggest house.
And who's got the biggest house?
Our first cousins.
Oh, okay. So is it always at their house then? Yeah. What about you, Hafsa? What's your most favourite thing about Eid? What's your most favourite thing? Are you thinking about it?
Praying Eid Salah.
What's her favourite thing, Mum?
She likes to see all her cousins and opening all your presents. Yes.
Oh,
opening your presents.
Are they all wrapped up, your presents, when you get them? Yeah. What's the best part about opening the presents? Is it ripping off the wrapping paper, or is it actually getting to the present? What do you think?
Getting to the present.
Really? So would you mind if it wasn't wrapped up? Would you mind? Or you like it wrapped up?
I like it.
Oh, okay. So it's a bit of both then, yeah? Do you have any special dishes on Eid that you have?
Pancakes.
When do you eat that?
At breakfast, my mum makes them especially for us.
Oh, that's lovely. And what
we
kind of
have them
toppings?
with blueberries and cream.
Blueberries and cream. Oh, that sounds amazing.
We like blueberries in our house.
Yeah, I've noticed blueberry cake, blueberry pancakes, mashallah. What about you? Is blueberry your favourite fruit, Hafsa? Really? Yes. Really? That's really good. You're very healthy, mashallah. What other things do you have on Eid? What other special dishes do you tend to have on Eid?
Yeah.
You have samosas. What kind of samosas do you have? Vegetable. So you've got lots of different types. Yeah? Oh, mashallah. You're very lucky. I don't get samosas on Eid. That makes me very sad now to know that you get samosas and I don't.
We'll have to send you some, isn't it? We'll have to send Auntie some. We'll have to invite her over next time.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Are there any particular dishes that you do that you kind of have especially for Eid day?
Just breakfast I'm in charge of, really. I mean, before we leave for Eid Salah, we usually have, like, the kids request pancakes every year, so we like to have pancakes. And we usually have breakfast at sort of auntie's house or sort of older relatives' house. And then they so everybody sort of brings a dish, traditional dishes that we have. Yeah, but we usually have sort of a range of different things. So, yeah.
Is there something that, you know, if you didn't have, it doesn't feel like Eid? Because everyone's got a thing that they have. Like, if they don't have this on Eid day, it just doesn't feel like Eid day.
Yeah, I mean,
presents.
Presents. She's talking about the food.
No, it doesn't have to be food, but for you, it's presents.
Yeah.
So if there's no presents, it doesn't feel like Eid.
No, and there has to be balloons, isn't it? Yeah. And this year we had fairy lights, don't we? Yeah.
How nice. Yeah. Oh, very nice. So what's the thing for you that kind of denotes, okay, without this, it's no Eid?
I think going to the park for Eid Salah is always lovely. So that really, because you see the whole community sort of gathered together in a lovely sort of outdoor place. So especially when it's hot, it's nice to go to the park. So that, and also sweet dishes. There has to be sweet, you know, chocolate cake. And
absolutely.
You know, there has
Do you get to have a slice of chocolate cake? Sometimes. Okay. And what do you like most about going to do their prayer at the park on Eid day? What's the best part about that? For you? Is there a fun fair at the park that you go to?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Do you get to go on rides, Hafsa? What's your favourite ride? Do you know? Do you have teacups at your rides? Yeah, do you do those? What do you think of that?
It's okay.
It's okay.
Aeroplanes.
Aeroplanes. Oh yeah, the aeroplanes.
Yeah, you press the buttons and it goes up and down.
Oh, okay. So is that the one that you like? What colour aeroplane do you pick?
Blue.
Pink.
Blue.
Blue. Oh, okay. So is that your favourite colour? No. What is your favourite colour?
Yellow.
Yellow. Actually, I quite like yellow too. It's one of my preferred colours. What about you?
Green.
Green. Oh, green. Absolutely lovely. Now, if we could wish for something, especially for Eid, what would you wish for? What would you especially wish for that you don't normally get on Eid? So I'll start with you, Sumaya. What would you wish for?
Go to a picnic.
Go to a picnic. Do you not have picnics?
We do, but not on Eid.
Not on Eid. Okay, so you wish you could do the picnic on Eid day instead. Oh, there you go, Mum. You've got to work on that now.
Yeah.
Got to get all the family out of the house.
Definitely, yeah. That would be different, wouldn't it?
It would. What about you, Hafsa? What do you wish you could do for Eid? You don't have any wishes? Is everything absolutely perfect?
Go to the beach.
Go to the beach, really? What, a sandy beach or a pebbly beach?
Sandy beach.
What would you do there?
Make a sandcastle.
Yeah. Are you very good at making sandcastles?
Yeah.
Yeah? And what's the perfect technique? How do you get a really good sandcastle? What do you
Make
do?
a hill, then carve it out.
Oh, so you don't use the buckets?
No.
So you use your hands. See, very, very clever, very creative, mashallah. What do you think kids, yourselves and other kids, what do you think they feel is the best thing about Eid?
Present.
Presents. It's always presents, isn't it? What's the best present you've gotten? What's the best present that you've had? Can you remember? Or they're all pretty special?
A sewing kit.
You've got a sewing kit. What have you made with your sewing kit?
I've made a lavender bag and a pin cushion.
Really? And do you use them?
I gave them as presents, but I kept the lavender bag.
Oh, that's so nice. MashaAllah. That's really good. And you've actually made some stuff for today as well. So what have you got today? What have you got with you?
I've made this.
Okay. And what's that?
It says Eid.
Yeah, it says Eid. Ah, so where do you normally hang it?
We haven't made them, so we're still deciding where to hang them.
Oh, you're still deciding.
I
Okay.
made this one.
And that one. I quite like that rainbow one. And Hafsa, you've got a beautiful heart. How did you make it? What did you use?
Hammer beads.
What's that?
Hammer beads.
Oh, really? But how did you get it so neat and flat together, these beads?
What do you put the beads on?
Hafsa's feeling very shy.
It's like a
What is it,
board, isn't
Sumaya?
It's like a board, and it's got little spikes on it, and you fit the beads onto the spikes, and you put greaseproof paper on top, and then you iron it, and you wait, and then when it's cool, you lift it off.
That's really clever. See,
You
I
can make
didn't
any
know.
designs that you want.
See, I didn't know that you could do that. So what's this board called then that you would stick the beads on?
I think it's just the board. The hammer beads, they come in a sort of a box. You get all
Okay.
different colours. Quite small, so you've got to be careful if you've got any sort of babies around. And you get different shaped boards, and you can make all sorts of things on there. So
That's
sort of,
really good.
yeah.
I think it's really ingenious and it's super
Yeah,
easy
yeah,
because you've got greaseproof paper at home, or most people
or
would.
tracing paper even, and it helps the kids to be imaginative and sort of make their own, be creative. We like to be creative, don't we, girls?
Do you get to use the iron, Hafsa, or does Mummy do that bit?
Mum.
Mummy does that bit. And do you get to pick all your colours and the shapes and things that you're making? Yeah? What's the best part about making these decorations?
Putting the beads on.
Yeah? And you've also got bracelets that you've also made yourself, isn't it? MashaAllah.
We got it in our Eid pack.
Did you? Oh, so you have Eid packs. Tell me about your Eid pack.
Sometimes Mum doesn't get us presents. Sometimes she gets us bag filled with potty things, and this came in my last year's one.
Ah, so you made it for yourself. That's really cool. So sometimes
Like
you
little
let them
party
get
bag.
creative for themselves.
Yeah, they
And we
love
haven't got a
making
big
things.
craft box at home.
Really? I need to come round to your house, I think. I think I'd have so much
If
fun
I ask her, what do you want to do today with Mummy? I want to do crafts. So out comes a box and we make a mess, don't we? But we have lots of fun at the same time. So.
That's so good, mashallah.
And yeah, it's really imaginative.
And thank you so much for sharing how you make those things. Oh, did you make us a card too? Oh, it's so lovely. We've got Eid Mubarak to Islam channel. Thank you for having us. Have a nice Eid, inshallah, from Sumaya and Hafsa. Thank you so much. This is really lovely. We're going to have to stick this up in a really good place so everyone can see it, inshallah, in the office. I think everyone's very, very glad that you came on. I feel very glad that you came on, alhamdulillah. I hope you had fun. Did you have a good time? Yeah? Not feeling too hot? No? Alhamdulillah. Jazakumullah khairan. Unfortunately, we have come to the end of today's show, but do join us again tomorrow at 11 a.m. for more discussion, news and banter. Tune in to find out what our panel has to say, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan to our sisters on the panel today, especially our lovely guests, and of course you at home, the viewers, for watching. Have a lovely day. Remember to love for your brother what you love for yourself, and Eid Mubarak. Assalamu alaikum.